Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I am Dr. Greta Strong, co-chair of the Women's Roundtable Action Platform of Trinidad and Tobago. The Women's Roundtable Action Platform exists to connect, engage, and empower dynamic women locally and globally through mentorship, education, networking, and advocacy. Welcome to a conversation with experts and survivors made possible under the distinguished patronage of the Embassy of Trinidad and Tobago in Washington, D.C., and permanent mission of the Organization of American States. This is being held in commemoration of the United Nations Elimination of Violence Against Women Day. We have prepared a place here today to have a conversation with an expert and survivor on responding to and preventing violence against women and children. Domestic violence is a global health crisis affecting people of all ages, races, and socioeconomic classes. Abuse often starts subtly and gets worse over time. Because of the high frequency of head and neck injuries inflicted through abuse, traumatic brain injury is common in survivors. These recurrent injuries can lead to chronic symptoms with long-lasting physical, behavioral, and cognitive consequences. To shed some light on what these features or how they may appear, please allow me to introduce our keynote speaker, my friend and colleague, Dr. Nitin Sethi, a board-certified neurologist with interest in clinical neurology, epilepsy, concussion, traumatic brain injury, and sleep medicine. He is a diplomat of several boards, namely the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology, the American Board of Clinical Neurophysiology, and the American College of Sports Medicine. Dr. Sethi is a fellow of the American Academy of Neurology, an associate professor of neurology, and director of the Concussion and Brain Injury Clinic at New York Presbyterian Hospital, Weill Cornell Medicine. He is the Chief Medical Officer of the New York State Athletic Commission. And now for our keynote address by Dr. Nitin Sethi.
Thank you, Greta. Thank you and good morning. And thank you for the kind introduction. It's an honor and privilege to be talking to everybody today. And when you talk about traumatic brain injuries, and one thing which I'd like the viewers to understand, that traumatic brain injuries is just not a single entity. There can be many types of traumatic brain injury, and there can be different severity of traumatic brain injury. So you can have a mild TBI, you can have a moderate TBI, and you can have a severe TBI. When you think about a severe traumatic brain injury, we're thinking about like a terrible accident. If somebody meets, unfortunately, a lot of trauma to the brain, on the scans of the brain, a lot of blood. But when you're talking about domestic violence, things like, which occurs behind closed doors. One important thing to understand is a lot of these injuries might be hidden, in the sense you and I, if you're talking to that person who has suffered a traumatic brain injury because of domestic violence, we may not see anything outwardly. There's no major bruising, no broken bones, but inside the brain has got injured. So for example, if somebody, takes someone and just smacks their head against the wall, or chokes somebody, a lot of people will suffer what is called as a concussion, which is a mild form of a traumatic brain injury. After the head injury, that person will have headache. They may have a feeling of being dizzy, off balance, nausea, vomiting. They may throw up, lights bother them, sounds bother them. At times also, they'll have problems related to like the higher mental function. My attention is off, the concentration is off, they cannot focus, memory is impaired. And then also we should understand a lot of times these injuries do not just affect the brain, they also affect the mind. So for example, anxiety, increased anxiety after that assault, depression, changes in mood and behavior. The person is more emotionally labile. He or she is not able to sleep, or they're sleeping too much. So an important point to remember when it comes to traumatic brain injury in the setting of domestic violence is this type of injury, which occurs behind closed doors, not clearly visible to even a close friend or family member, but the patient who has suffered that person is definitely injured. And these injuries are hard to identify, but they, as I said, they cause a lot of different symptoms affecting not just the brain, but also the mind. One other thing which I want to say about these things is, how do we go about figuring out that the person has suffered these type of injuries? A lot of times these patients will not seek medical attention. So they'll not come to a doctor like me, walk in saying, I think I'm injured. A lot of times that occurs because they're not comfortable talking about these injuries, bringing them to medical attention. So a lot of these sufferers are having the stigmata of traumatic brain injury, and they don't even seek medical attention. And these injuries, we also should understand, they are not at times just one single blow to the head. A person who is involved in domestic violence or assault, he or she might be getting those injuries, frequently over a course of their relationship. So again, that's an important point for everybody who's involved with this to know, not just physicians, family members, the person himself, that what these injuries are, why they are at times difficult to figure out. But then one thing I want to say is that there is a lot of resources out there which can help these patients. So one, nowadays, most hospitals have neurologists like me, who are skilled in taking care of patients who have suffered traumatic brain injury, concussions. We can do scans of the brain to figure out, like an MRI of the brain, to see if there's any evidence of any major head injury, like blood in the brain. A lot of times the treatment is supportive care, telling the patient what to do, take a few days of rest, removing the patient from that environment, giving the patient a few days of mental rest, physical rest. At times other healthcare professionals like neuropsychologists, psychiatrists are involved in the care. We can do some sort of cognitive remediation therapy, trying to identify what are the cognitive problems the patient is having, and then treating them with the help of, for example, a neuropsychologist. At times, having other things like, for example, if their balance is off, referring them for physical therapy, occupational therapy. So there are many ways we can help these patients. If the main complaint after the suffering the traumatic brain injury is headache, we can refer them for treatment for headache. So I want to end by saying that it's a very important thing that you're shining light on this problem, because a lot of times this problem, this type of injury occurs behind closed doors, does not come readily to medical attention, but these patients suffer, at times they're suffering for a long period of time, I want these patients to feel empowered. There are resources out there which can help these patients heal their brain, heal the mind, and return them to a normal level of functioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sethi, for enlightening us on traumatic brain injury and the significant cognitive and emotional difficulties a survivor might face. And most importantly, emphasizing the importance of seeking medical care, which is available to address these difficulties. And now we will share a video depiction.
demand to be safe. We demand to be safe. Whose street? Our street!
Parents need to train the boy, especially to respect young girls, to respect women on a whole, because at the end of the day, you come from a woman.
At this time, I wish to introduce Ms. Onika Mars. Onika Mars is the 2019 Trinidad and Tobago National Gold Medal winner and founder of Sit and Chat with Onika Mars, a domestic violence support group. She is also the founder and president of Women of Substance, a nonprofit organization. Her support group has reached over 300 women within the Caribbean diaspora, including Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent, Jamaica, the USA, and United Kingdom. Ms. Mars is a member of the government's Interministerial Committee, which was formed to coordinate strategies that serve to reduce domestic violence. Ms. Mars is also an alumni of the U.S. International Visitor Leadership Exchange Program. Ms. Mars will begin this conversation by giving us an insight into why this cause is important to her. Onika, may I ask you to share your insight?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Strong. This cause is really important to me because 1 in 3 women worldwide experienced physical abuse, mostly by an intimate partner, at some point throughout their lifetime. I am one of those women. Violence against women and girls is a human rights violation, and this affects women's general well-being, and it does affect in a negative manner. I want to change that narrative. I want to be the voice of hope and also the voice for the voiceless. The fact that domestic violence has a lifelong effect on several persons, it means that society needs to be educated, whether we like it or not. We know that it's a very sensitive issue, but the education is needed. And I have made that commitment to play my part. I thank you.
And Onika, do you want to wish to take this time to ask other women to join you in the elimination of domestic violence?
I want women to know, or persons to know on a whole, that the issue of domestic violence and abuse is no longer my business or Dr. Strong's business. It is everybody's business. We all have a role to play. You may not know, you may not have been affected by domestic violence and abuse directly, but I am certain that you know someone who have been affected. So it means the fact that 1 in 3 women have been affected throughout their lifetime, it means that we know somebody sitting next to you in the pew in church, sitting next to you at your office space, sitting next to you on the bus, might be a victim of domestic violence and abuse. So I want to encourage, I want to make a clarion call to women to join in the conversation. This conversation is necessary. We all need to be the change that we want to see. So hold my hand and let's orange the world and make a difference.
Thank you, Onika. I have a question for you. What do you think is missing from the conversation on ending this rampage of violence against women seen in our country?
What I would say is missing from the conversation is the voice of everyone on different levels in society. As I said before, this is not domestic violence and abuse is no longer my business or your business. We all have a role to play. We all have a responsibility in ending violence against women and girls. So everybody's bit, everybody's contribution is needed. We no longer want to sit in pockets of society and give our 2 cents. We want the conversation, the discussion to be on a national level so that all the players who have a role to play, they play their role. So I think discussions on a national level and everybody playing their part is what is missing from the conversation.
Do you think that missing from the conversation are men? And do you think that they would play a valuable role in joining this conversation?
Definitely. How could I have missed the men? Men are part of the problem. So, of course, they need to be a part of the solution. We need to have our men sit in spaces shared by women because this is not a woman thing or a man thing. Everybody is affected by domestic violence and abuse. And too often we have in lots of spaces, we have women's empowerment, we have girls' empowerment, we have different discussions that are led by women. What we need is our men to contribute. We want our men to know firsthand how we feel. We want our men to understand the dynamics of domestic violence and abuse and intimate partner violence, which is a subset of domestic violence. We want our men to know that they have a responsibility, they have a contribution to make.
Okay. And why do you think this trend of violence exists so starkly? I mean, you get up every morning and there is always something in the newspaper about violent actions against women. What do you think is causing this?
I personally believe the way we were socialized has a lot to do with it. Our men see our women as their property. What I want to say is, we are not your property. We are your partners. We are your lovers. We are your sisters. We are your wives. I mean, we are not property. Stop seeing us as property. And Earlier today, I was a part of a discussion, and we were talking about violence in the society, intimate partner violence, and it was like, what is the cause of it, right? And I personally believe that socialization has a lot to do with it, as I said before. The way our boys were socialized, the way our girls were socialized, right? And we need re-socialization to take place.
Okay, so so that re-socialization takes place, do you think that enough is being done in terms of curricular at the high school and college level on the prevention of violence and abuse?
I would say no. Personally, I believe that the conversation should start even at a kindergarten level, and we can make the conversation and the curriculum age appropriate, because the reality is our kindergarten children are exposed to domestic violence and abuse and toxic environments. So then let us have the age appropriate conversations from an early age so that they understand what they are facing and understand that they can speak up about what they are experiencing. So I do not think that enough is being done. The conversations need to be had in school, the education need to take place.
Thank you. And do you believe that children, since we're talking about them, are silent victims of domestic violence and abuse?
Yes, I believe that children are silent victims because the most times children are not the main focus. We love to say children are resilient. We love to say the children are young. They may not even understand what is taking place. Speaking from a place of experience as a survivor, 13 plus years ago, while I was a victim, my children were 3 and 4 years old, and they would have been privy to what was happening. They were exposed. And at that time, the focus was really not on them. The focus was on me because, of course, I thought and everybody thought that they are small. They don't know what is taking place. And the impact on children as silent victims is often overlooked. And what research shows is that 3 to 4 million children are at risk being exposed to domestic violence annually. And of course, these silent victims suffer a wide range of emotions and behavioral disturbances as a result of this exposure.
Okay. And can you clearly point out for us some of the effects of witnessing domestic violence as a child?
Sure. Anger issues, deviant behavior. Children may suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. Sometimes we have children fighting, bullying, stealing, and we wonder what is happening. I've seen firsthand in schools, when I do programs in schools, children who teachers would consider deviant, children who teachers would consider troublesome. And the teachers, instead of trying to get to the root cause of the problem, they most times label these children, not understanding the background from which they came. And maybe it is, and that is why I said before that educating our society is so important, because if our educators are trained to recognize the signs of the effect of domestic violence and abuse on children, maybe the intervention can be made. Children who are silent victims, of course, are more likely to display deviant behavior than those from violent, loving homes. Witnessing violence in the home affects a child's academic achievement and even their behavior at school, as I mentioned before. So those are some of the effects. They are not limited to only those, but they are some of the effects.
And Onika, would you like to tell the audience about the signs of an abusive relationship and how someone can leave a dangerous situation?
Okay, so if your partner is too controlling, abuse is about power and control. If your partner is excessively jealous, if your partner tries to isolate you, your partner wants to disconnect you from your family members and friends, your partner is calling you every minute to find out where you are. You must report your location. You must report who you are in the company of. You must report what exactly you're doing and where you are. These are some of the signs of an abusive relationship. And sometimes we overlook because I remember years ago, I thought that my partner calling me as soon as he dropped me off to work and asking, well, maybe 10 minutes or so after dropping me off to work and asking, where are you? I was thinking, well, okay, my partner cares and, he wants to know, so he's checking up. And I overlooked that sign because back then I really didn't understand what the dynamics of domestic violence and abuse was. I thought it was only domestic violence and abuse was only physical, not understanding that there are different types of abuse. So those are some of the telltale signs that people often overlook because sometimes as women, we are so emotional and we tend to become emotionally attached quickly, right? And because of this, we overlook the signs thinking that, we in love. My partner is showing me a lot of attention and, my partner care a lot. So this is what it is. This is the real deal. As it relates to getting out of a dangerous situation, right? This is the question you asked, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, where can a mother go for help when she finds herself in a violent situation?
Right. First and foremost, Dr. Strong, what I would want to say is getting out of a dangerous situation is not as easy as it seems or even sounds. To us who are outside and looking in, we may ask, and the question is often asked, why doesn't she just leave? I mean, after one blow, after one physical assault, after one cuff in the face, why doesn't she just leave? I have been asked that question on many occasions. It wasn't that easy. Our society is very judgmental. So for me, I thought, okay, leaving this relationship, it means that if I get into another relationship, I would be branded by society and branded as a whore. I was fearful because my partner often said to me, if you leave, no other man is going to get you. So, of course, I felt intimidated. I was threatened on many occasions. So then what do? I stayed in the relationship thinking that, you know what, I will be able to change him. By then, years into the relationship, we had 2 children. And because I grew up hearing society saying that, you know what, you are probably a Proverbs 31 woman. If you have all your children for one man, you are a good girl, you are a good woman. I thought, you know what, let me stay for my children's sake, not recognizing the damage that I was doing for my children. So what I was supposed to do was to leave for my children's sake. Of course, I did it eventually. Another reason why women stay is because of low self-esteem and low self-worth, because the perpetrator destroys the perpetrator destroys you, who you are as an individual, right? And women need to be very, very, very careful when they decide that they are about to leave, because it is the most dangerous time in the relationship. It means that you have to use wisdom. You have to exercise caution. So then what do? You reach out to an agency or organization that could guide you through designing a safety plan that is specific to your situation so that you can leave and leave safely. Ensure that you make a report to the police. In our case, Trinidad and Tobago, the gender-based violence unit is there. Reach out to the gender-based violence unit and make a report so that the police is aware and the police can guide you as it relates to applying for a restraining order and the likes of it, so that when you leave, when you decide that you're going to leave, you have your restraining order, you have your report to the police, you have also your safety plan in place, which is most important, because you don't want to just get up and leave. You also don't want to tell your partner that you are leaving, because, as I mentioned earlier, domestic violence and abuse is about power and control. And once the perpetrator recognizes that they are losing that control, it angers them. So they would get into a fit, and this often leads to death.
Okay, Onika, and can the same be said for someone who may be in a same-sex relationship? Have you had situations that you've had to counsel on with regard to same-sex relationship violence?
I have never had a situation as such, but what I want to say is that gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, is no respecter of persons. It's like COVID-19. It's no respecter of persons. It doesn't matter your sexual orientation. It doesn't matter your educational background. It doesn't matter your ethnic background. It doesn't matter your religion. It doesn't matter your economic status. Anyone can experience or be affected by domestic violence and abuse.
Thank you so much, Onika. And now we will take questions from our audience. Colette? Hello, Colette. I'm waiting for any questions or answers. So I have a question here. Can you also share about psychological abuse?
Okay, sure. So psychological abuse is abuse that is not physical. It's constant degradation and pulling down. So the perpetrator normally attacks your mind, and a lot of times psychological abuse, of course, it is not seen. So people tend to overlook, because with physical abuse, the scars are evident. Psychological abuse, one cannot see the actual signs of the psychological abuse. So most times people question, when a victim tells somebody that they're experiencing psychological abuse, they are often questioned like, are you sure? Are you sure? not understanding that with the psychological abuse, one does not see the effects of it.
Antonika, what would you want to see the leadership of our country do to eliminate violence against women?
I would want to see the leadership in our country become more involved and place priority to this scourge that is taking place in our society. Because the reality is, domestic violence and abuse has an effect on the society because there are different layers. It has an economic effect because, for instance, women who are employed, they are victims, right? And they have to take time off from work to attend court or to attend the doctor or whoever because of the injuries they may have sustained during a physical altercation, right? So we're looking at paid time off, we're looking at low productivity levels. And this, of course, has an effect on the society, right? So I would want leaders to place domestic violence at close to top priority
I
and
totally,
have continuous conversations.
thank you. I totally agree with that. And a question from the audience. How did you find the courage to leave your abusive relationship?
Okay, after 13 years in that abusive relationship, I remember an instant where my partner came in at 2 a.m. It had gotten almost like normalized. So it became a habit. We were living together in my house, and I was also experiencing infidelity, right, which is also a form of emotional and psychological abuse, added to gaslighting, right? And he came home at 2 a.m. that morning. And I remember him waking me up, mind you. At that time, I was employed as a security officer with Tech. So a lot of times I did the 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift. So of course at 2 a.m. I would want to sleep so that I could get up at 4 a.m. to prepare the children, drop them to the babysitter to go to work. And he came in at 2 o'clock that morning and he said to me, "This is it." So I thought, okay, finally he recognized that, you know what, the relationship isn't making sense anymore. And I said to him, okay, we have been going through a lot of experiencing a lot of challenges. The relationship really cannot work. And I said to him, I'll be more than happy to make arrangements for you to come visit the children. Because in my mind, I was thinking, okay, him saying, "This is it," meant that he's at that place where he's ready to accept that the relationship could no longer go on. But what he told me was, and this made me freeze, what he said to me was, "You're telling me about children coming to visit children? The police, your parents will find your body parts scattered in this house." And, you know, I mean, imagine someone saying something like that to you. Somebody saying something like that to you. I mean, this is years of being in a relationship. You're lying on the same bed with the person. You have children with the person. So it is like immediately I went into prayer mode, like, God, I cannot die. I have my children to live for. God, I am not done yet. and I was praying silently and asking God to intervene. And I remember saying to God, if you deliver me alive from this situation, I promise you that I will serve you with everything within me. I promise you. And I mean, God answered my prayer because God allowed him to call his sister, and his sister kept him on the phone until 6 a.m. And at that point, I decided, well, okay, I need to make a move. I didn't know anything about safety planning. I didn't know anything about resources. I don't even know if there were available resources at that time. I didn't know of any. And of course, I had to ask him to leave. And that was not an easy fate. It was a horrible situation. And he eventually left, and he came to my job and reported to my senior, who was a male, that I threatened to shoot him. And all of this made me feel that, you know what, enough is enough. And I decided to, at that time we lived in Trinidad, and I decided then that I need to go. So this is survival for me. So that would have triggered me to run away from that abusive relationship. So I took my children eventually, and I escaped to Tobago.
Okay, and Onika, as a mother, how did you feel about seeing the impact on your children, and how did you get help for your own emotional needs?
The impact is heartbreaking because as a mother, I often ask, how can, and the Bible talks about it, how can a mother's love cease towards the child she bears? It could never cease. And when you look at your children, every parent, or most parents, I know most mothers, want to see children who are pain-free. They want to see children who are normal, living a normal life, children who are not broken. And the last thing a parent wants to see is that their children are experiencing pain. So it was a painful experience for me. So what I did was sought therapy. I accessed therapy for myself and my children. Now, it was difficult. It was difficult. It
Wow.
was difficult, but I sought the necessary intervention, and and this would have helped me so far. And because of the fact that I am now heavily involved in this movement, I recognize that even though my children are teenagers now, they would have been so broken. They would have experienced anger issues. They would have experienced a sense of rejection, a sense of loss, and all that. So I am still dealing with the situation, but I've been able to pray and trust God throughout. And my spiritual journey and support system has been a great help for me.
Thank you, Anika. And I have to ask another important question. What are some of the things men can start doing to be a part of the solution?
Men can make themselves available. The man is the head. We have too many homes where our men are missing. Our men need to understand what domestic violence and intimate partner violence is. Our men need to understand that love doesn't hurt. God, who loves us, doesn't hurt us. So if our men understand the importance of effective communication and all that, it would help. So our men need to be involved. Our men need to listen more and communicate effectively. When a woman says to you, I need help, I need you to listen to me, I need you to hear me out, listen to them. So be available, make yourselves available. A lot of men are out of the home and for various reasons, including infidelity, right? And our men need to be there because they have aborted their responsibilities. So they need to be there and understand what intimate partner violence is and be willing to learn.
Monica, I know we have asked you to shed a lot of light on this issue. Is there anything that you would like the audience to know?
I would want the audience to know that as adults, we should not look the other way. We need to speak out. We need to show compassion and refer parents to resources for the necessary intervention. As I said before, you may not be a victim of domestic violence and abuse, but I am certain that you know somebody. Be proactive in helping children of all ages develop attitudes and beliefs that lead to healthy relationships. Let us teach peace in our home by modeling nonviolent, respectful behavior among family members. Let us also support education programs that address bullying and teen dating violence. Let us be a part of the solution. Let us stop complaining about what is not being done. Let us ask ourselves the question, what can I do? How can I help? How can I become a change agent? How can I contribute to making a difference and also ending violence against women and girls?
Yes, thank you so much, Onika. We are immensely grateful to you for controlling your narrative and telling your story. This is about shining light into dark places, creating healthier communities, and empowering others to break the silence. Thank you so much for your generosity of spirit, Onika, and
You're
many
welcome.
blessings to you as you go forward.
Thank you. I receive it.
You're welcome. And in closing, we wish to acknowledge and thank the Embassy of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago in Washington, D.C., and the Permanent Mission of the Organization of American States. His Excellency, retired Brigadier General Anthony Philip Spencer and Mrs. Joanne Philip Spencer, our honorable guests, Dr. Nitin Sethi and Onika Mars, and the committee members who worked diligently behind the scenes to share this platform with you. We value the technical support we received from Greg. We also wish to thank you, our viewing audience, and our sponsors, Agilon International Ventures Incorporated here in New York, Global Food Warrior, The Movement, National Vitiligo Bond Foundation in Atlanta, Georgia, Nirvana Tobago Luxury Villa in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today.